Hello and welcome to the first video from the Black Octopus Evolving Textures sample pack. This sample pack is made up of interesting textures that are used to gel your sounds together and create an extra layer of interest underneath your main melodic information. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is looking at a way to lie them behind your percussive elements and to have them interact with the percussion that you have going on. So the first thing we're going to do is choose one of the samples that we want to use. As you can see down here, I've got one of the folders open, the Haunting folder. Let's just choose one of these at random. I'll go for number 5 here. Drag that on to a channel in Ableton, and if we have a look down here, we can see that the information in the clip is here. Okay, so if we hit play, we'll be able to hear that. Okay, so what we want to do is have that interacting with the percussion that we create. So the first thing we're going to do is create a ghost channel which doesn't actually send any audio to the main master output. We just use that audio to affect a compressor which we place on the channel with the texture. Okay, so here I've loaded up just a simple 808 drum kit. We can see that here in one of the drum racks. One good way to use sidechain compression is to keep the decay quite short. This means that it will open up and close the compressor very, very quickly. So I'm going to bring the decay down, and we can hear that. Okay, let's bring the decay down on the kick. There we go, that's a little bit tighter now. And as I said before, we don't want that information going to the master output. We can see it here, and then it's coming through to the master output here. If we just turn the channel off, the audio information still goes to the channel, but it doesn't make it to the master output, which is great for what we want. So on this channel here, where we have the texture, we can now add an audio effect. So in our browser on the left-hand side, we click on Audio Effects, and we're going to put on the glue compressor. Does the same job as the other compressor, but it's based on some of the vintage pieces of equipment. So you'll see the slightly less controls, and just the algorithms that it uses to Maya are a little bit more interesting. And yeah, it sounds great when used as a sidechain. Okay, so we place this on there. Now if we select this here, this opens up a little side menu for us, and we can actually turn our sidechain on. We now need to decide where the audio input's coming from. Now to make this easier, let's actually give this a name. So if we click here, press Command and R, we can then call this one Ghost. Okay, so now we can go into our compressor and we can select the audio input from the Ghost channel. Okay, so now when we play the texture, anytime that I hit the Ghost input, so there's a kick drum coming through there, and we can see that that's going into the compressor. Now at the moment, that's not actually going to be affecting it because the threshold is still at 0 dB. If we bring the threshold down and then play, you can already see there that the dial on the compressor is actually moving. So let's hit play. You can hear that when I hit the kick drum, you can actually see that it drops the volume of the texture channel. So now let's just place in a simple 4/4 kick on here. So if we create a clip, if we double click in this first part here, that places one kick drum, place another here, and another here. This is going to give us a simple 4-beat cycle, and that's going to compress the sound of the texture on the first hit of every single beat. So we can hear it at the moment, but it's very subtle. So now let's go onto our channel where we have the compressor, and we can now start to adapt the controls to suit what we need. So let's hit play, and we'll have a little mess around with them and see what we want to do. So firstly, by decreasing the threshold, we can hear that it becomes much more significant effect. We can then put the ratio up, so that's now 1 to 2, so that means every 1 to 10, sorry. So every 10 dB that comes through, we only actually let 1 dB of the sound come through. So that means that every 10 dB that this kick goes over the threshold, it actually reduces the amount of the texture down to 1 dB. So we can then increase the release as well to make it release a little bit slower, and we can decrease the attack to make it a very fast effect. There we go. It's a very noticeable effect now. And as you can hear, the sound of the texture is actually very high up. Now, normally you would keep that a little bit lower in the mix because you'd have a lot of other melodic pieces of information in there. And it's just there to act as a kind of a glue and a gel to bring everything together, and to just add an extra layer of interest to your piece of music.